listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
So, to quote Glenn Fry, which I'm sure has never happened on this podcast before, the heat is on.
God, you know, how much traffic did that song get in, like, the 80s? Like, that was such a huge song.
It still probably makes him, like, a lot of money in residuals from
you're right.
various places it gets played. For people who need, who are, like, love doing that thing where, like, they literally like to match what they're talking about with words from a song.
Yeah, like me.
Yeah. Lisa pays him just directly, Venmos him, like, she's got an American account just so she can Venmo him, like, $5 a month.
Yeah.
The summer months only.
Or I like my other weather report that I give, which is that I often say to people, you know this one, I say it's Phil Collins weather.
I like to shout and wave my hands and scream, "It's raining men."
When it's actually, yes. Oh, thank you, songs. But yeah, now that the heat is on, I'm disappointed. I was like all looking forward to it. And now I come here in our little podcast home, and you guys thought I'd been running. And I was like, no. No.
Like,
I just came in from outside.
Specifically, AG thought you were running. I thought you'd had a haircut and were arriving home after a haircut. No, you have a very glowy, dewy sort of like, maybe you had a nice time.
This was the walk from the bus stop to my home that gave me this fresh glow.
Wow.
Yeah, you have the look of a jogger. And I mean that as a compliment. Like,
yeah, well, the hair is a bit
energized or something.
I can't fix it. It's just.
I also think you could look post-coital. I want to give you both those options.
Okay,
so
I'll go with that one.
The must hair and the
that would be.
Yeah.
Has this happened with our team here that you've come to the podcast after that?
Like freshly sexed?
Yeah.
I'm sure I have at some point. More likely when we're recording at home than when we were recording at the library.
That's good to know.
I would have assumed so. Yeah. But
I'm sure at some point. I mean,
we've been recording at home now for 3 years.
But also we usually start at like 6 or 7 p.m.
Look, sometimes you like to end the work day with just a little bang it out and then, go on with your evening.
You would often, to be honest, you would often disappear into the quiet room before we came to.
That's true.
I never had sex in the quiet room.
And we're not.
I woke up next to a stranger once, but I never had sex in the quiet room.
And we don't need to assume that having the sex means you're with someone. I mean,
no, of course. It could be just individual, like Judy Blume has taught us be loud and proud about talking about masturbation, which is an early segue, actually. I didn't even get to talk about my love of swimming, but I feel like now we've done it and we gotta
no, we're there. We're there.
We just gotta go into it. We just gotta.
Just like Judy Blume.
Honestly, I love that. Sometimes we talk for a long time, sometimes we talk for a short time. And now that we've talked about masturbation, I do kind of want to talk about Judy Blume.
I'm sure she'd be thrilled to hear that you segued from masturbation to Judy Blume.
I think she would.
And I know I was sincere, yeah.
Yeah, now that I know that she writes people back sometimes, I'm trying to I'm gonna send her the coolest letter I hopefully can, and a copy of my forthcoming book because I think maybe she would like it, and I would like her to stock it because she does YA books and kids books in her bookstore in Key West. I'm gonna stalk Judy Blume. This is my announcement right now, as I'm just gonna stalk her with my new book.
So you're gonna stalk her to stalk you?
Yeah, I am. Wow, so much fun with words today, Lisa.
Yeah.
That exercise really invigorated your whole spirit.
Yeah, that little burst there of a block of walking really did it for me.
I'm Andrea Warner.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Andrea Gin.
And you're listening to Pop This. And yes, we are talking about Judy Blume. Yes, we are continuing to watch biodocs about complex women.
Why is that our genre of choice right now?
Yeah, I don't know.
They just happen to be, they were made a lot in the pandemic. They were easy to make in the pandemic, probably, as like a, you just sort of one location, and then you could set up all the other interviews with people. Not, documentary making doesn't have to be an extremely complex form of like sets and stuff like that. So maybe, and I think people, I mean, I don't want to say for sure that this is happening, but like we're, obviously some studios and some producers are actually seeing like a positive outcome of like having these like powerful, complex, interesting women like being in a place to like tell their own stories.
Well, I was going to say
great.
It's quite notable that most of the biodocs we have seen are by women.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like it's started a wave, and it's gonna we're just gonna see many more, I think, because people watch it and they're like, I could tell my story.
Absolutely. And I feel like, there's been so many instances where we've seen documentaries about women who really never had any control over their own stories at all. Really any agency over their own stories. I think this Judy Blume documentary is very different. She, I feel, has like had a lot of agency in her life, and that's actually such a nice counter story to some of the other ones that we've seen, and she's been so important and influential to so many young readers and writers and young people and people who've grown up with her over the last 50 years. Like that's amazing. And this is a very different documentary experience than Brooke Shields or Pamela Anderson.
Yeah, it feels like she's not doing this to try and correct a bunch of incorrect information that has been reported on her throughout her life, like the others are.
Yeah, but I feel like we didn't have necessarily like, at least I didn't. Like I'd read a lot of her books, and I'm like, I still read Summer Sisters every year.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, this is
Really?
like the second or third copy that I've had to buy, because one I lent a friend and they just never gave back, and another one fell apart, and I got this at like a used bookstore or something, and
I've never read it.
No.
Oh my God, I love it so much. It's like horny and
What's it about?
messy, but it's about two women who become friends at the age of 12. One woman who is they're girls at the age of 12, obviously. Her name is Caitlin. She has divorced parents and spends her summers on Martha's Vineyard with her dad. And Vix, who is 12 also, and has like extremely poor parents, but she's very smart. And Caitlin is extremely beautiful. She's really popular. And she just all of a sudden one day asks Vix to come spend the summer with her at Martha's Vineyard. And it's a complete like, see how the other half lives, even though it like looks more glamorous, it's actually also messy. And then we followed their friendship and kind of their frenemyship over the course of 20 years.
Isn't this Beaches?
It's very different than Beaches.
Okay.
It's very different than Beaches. It's it's very different than Beaches.
But
I love it, even though it's like, it's like horny and messy, and those are some fascinating qualities to see in teenage girls, and then young women in their 20s into their early 30s.
Yeah. But is it a book that you read when you were 12?
It came out in 1998, so no. But I read a lot of other Judy Blume books when I was I mean, I started reading Judy Blume when I was like really young because I definitely read like Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and Sheila the Great and all those kinds of books. I don't remember Blubber that well, but maybe that's because I was a fat kid and I didn't want to like read a book about that in case it like didn't seem to make it better. But like I'm definitely sure I read it at some point, but I don't remember it that well. But it was actually like getting into her more teen, like the teenage girls and like finding the passages that had like descriptions of like sexual contact between people and like the masturbation scenes and stuff like that. Like those were very thrilling to me as like just, you know, a young person who was like, yeah, I love to flip around down there.
Wow, I don't know where you go from there.
Well, Lisa, were you a big reader of Judy Blume?
Yeah, very. Yeah, I was really big fan. I think my favorite was Deanie. That was one of the ones I really remember, and that's where the masturbation scene is so talked about. And I remember very, very clearly being at the library and wanting to take out the book Forever, and the librarian flagging it to my mom and saying that Lisa shouldn't be able to take this book out. So yeah, I know. I remember that very clearly, and I remember being
your librarian was a narc. That's not cool.
No,
yeah.
No, I remember being mortified. So yeah, I remember. And then I just would. I don't know if I read. I didn't continue to read some of her like older like adult books like you did there with Beach House. I think I moved on to like other ones of those kinds of books.
It's called Summer Sisters.
Summer Sisters.
But yeah,
I mixed beaches and what's Summer House? Where did I get that?
I'm sure it's like it's another one there. I'm sure it's
it's out there. Yeah.
Yeah. I read like I'm looking at her list of books, and yeah, I've read most of the ones for the like children, and then definitely Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and Deanie. But I think that like that after that, I have not read any books after that. And I'm kind of interested in her adult books based on watching this documentary.
Yeah, especially Wifey. I never read Wifey. You read Wifey?
I think I snuck Wifey at the library. Like, I don't think I was allowed to take it out, but I think I read it at the library. I also remember, like, I mean, I grew up a little free range. Like, I mean, yes, I had family around, but like no one was really watching what I was reading. And I read all the time, and I read voraciously, so I could just take out whatever I wanted at the library. But they didn't always have all of the like good Judy Blume books, quote unquote. And I mean good with like the dirty ones, that had like the dirty lines or whatever. So I definitely read Wifey at some library, but I don't think I could take it out. And I haven't read it in so long that I need to get it and take it back out again and read it. I don't think I've ever read Smart Women, so that's interesting to me. That's in 1983. Apparently, it's the story of a divorcee who falls for her friend's ex-husband. And then Summer Sisters, I've just told you I like love it, and I've read it a million times. And so I got In the Unlikely Event when it came out in 2015, and it's still sitting on my bookshelf, and I tried to crack it, and it just felt very different than anything I'd ever read by Judy before, that I haven't found my way into it yet. So I'll try again at some point, but that's like her last full-length book. And I can appreciate when she talks about in the documentary that she was like, I knew it was because I don't want to sit inside anymore. And I was like, yeah, I get it, dude. I totally get it. Go ride your bike and go to your bookstore and smell your new books and, just live your life with that like really cute husband of yours.
I know.
I was reading that they both run the bookstore, but he also runs an indie movie theater in Key West.
Come on.
They're like the dream couple.
Yeah, they're like this cultural hub of the community, basically.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
I love I love the scene in the doc too where people are phoning the bookstore to see when she's in. Like that. Yeah. I mean, just imagine it's like a dog sighting or something. Judy in today, I'll come in. That's amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it so much. Anyway, all right. Shall we do this background and who is Judy in synopsis. I really love that you gave us 3 sections, AG, so each of us can really dive in there. Lisa, you want to read background?
Sure. A new documentary about Judy Blume sheds light on the profound impact that the beloved children's book writer had on a whole generation of young girls. For many of those who grew up throughout the 70s and 80s, books like Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, whose film adaptation hits theater April 28th, to Superfudge and Forever, marked the first time they were able to read about often censored topics like sexuality and puberty. Rather than centering on the wildly popular author's rise to fame, the film smartly focuses on Blume's uniquely close relationship with her fans. The documentary, directed by filmmakers Divino Pardo and Leah Wolchak, features a mixture of interviews with Blume, past and present, tributes from younger YA authors and celebrity admirers like Lena Dunham and Samantha Bee, and visualized readings. Most notable are the legions of fans who have become longtime pen pals of the author, and that's from Anna Tingley in Variety.
Could you believe that part of it? Like the back and forth pen paling with her fans? Like
That honestly just like filled me to my brim. I loved it so much. Like,
And to have so many that you actually have like file boxes full of them.
well, she actually she published like a few different nonfiction books. The Judy Blume Diary, Letter to Judy, What Your Kids Wish They Could Really Tell You, and the Judy Blume Memory Book. Like those are all in the 80s. And like, I just love that, you know, we're able to sort of like see how this conversation, like, and how much she cared about young people, and to like just have like for kids to feel like an adult like thinks that they have value. Like, I don't know, man, that was the only thing I really wanted when I was like younger, is just, and I had a few people in my life who like definitely made sure that like they were like, you know, children are people, but there are so many people who when they get to be adults are just like children are nothing. Mm-hmm. Children like seen and not heard, like all of these like horrible ideas that like children just are not people. And we see this all the time in so many things, especially in like currently legislation, et cetera, but like I love when people understand that children also count as people.
I know, and you know, to have all these people just writing her such personal letters.
I know.
I mean, that's so unique, I would think. Like, how many authors get letters like that?
And the pages and pages and pages of them. Not just a quick blurb, hey, I really enjoyed your book, but the unloading of their own personal situations, as if there's something Judy could do to fix it, like she's a wizard or something.
Either of you ever written to an author?
Yes.
Or an idol?
Yes, I did.
Really? Who?
I wrote a letter to George Saunders.
Fascinating.
Do you know who he is? You do?
George, I don't know who that is.
He is I guess you call him a literary fiction writer, the American. He wrote, I think he won the Booker Prize, the Pulitzer Prize for Lincoln on the Bardo. I don't know if you've heard of that book. Anyway, no. I read, oddly, years ago, I'm like, probably like 20 years ago, I read one of his short stories in the New Yorker. And I just was so dazzled by this short story. I thought, I'm going to write this guy a letter. So I wrote him a letter care of the New Yorker, and he wrote back. So
really?
That's so nice.
Yeah, it was. He wrote back a really nice letter too. I have it somewhere. I don't know, but yeah, I don't often do that, but it's the weirdest thing. But I just was so impressed with this story. I thought I have to write you a letter.
That's so nice. That's so nice. I don't think I've ever written an author a letter, but I've gone to author readings and occasionally told people like how much their work means to me and stuff. And I've been really like lucky to be on the receiving end of like a few very, very nice correspondences from people. It's all email now, but some people have written me responding to like different books or different pieces that I've written, and I always like writing back, but I understand completely why Judy was like, I had to eventually go get a therapist. I'm like, yeah. People like to tell you stuff when you're like someone that they feel like they know a little bit, and that you're also a stranger. That's a safe place to put some like really heavy things, you know? And you don't know what to do with it all the time.
Yeah. Just that because the interesting thing about like watching this documentary was that I don't know if this is the expression, and I don't know if she was here, if she would agree, but that's certainly not what she signed up for.
Yeah.
Of all the goals she had, and, this longing to be more than a housewife in New Jersey, and to want to write and to want to tell stories and to want to be out there, and then to find yourself, taking letters from young kids telling you about their problems is not exactly what I think she imagined.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone can fully imagine that, because then you have to sort of imagine that your work is really like connecting with people. And I think like that's one of the great things about Judy Blume, the Judy Blume that we see in the documentary and that we always hope is real, because like she comes through on the page so well, but like there's a real humility there where she's like not taking any of it for granted. She's just trying to like be real and make her characters real and give them the kind of like space and dignity that they deserve, even when they're characters who are doing bad things, or characters who are doing weird things, or things that they think are like morally gray or whatever. Like, so I don't know that like, I guess eventually maybe she'd start to think like that, but I don't think she could write like that and think like that think about what the outcome will be. You know what I mean? That would be, she'd get in her own way a lot.
Oh,
I think.
No, absolutely. It's just, it's just the evolution of what happened to her in her writing is quite surprising.
Yeah, it's like just like, yeah, all the heavy things, but also like all of these relationships that she then fosters, like when she goes to Laurie's graduation from Bryn Mawr, like, what a beautiful story.
Just like getting a call and from, someone one of your readers being like, I'm having problems with my parents. They're not going to come to my graduation. Can you come? And then just going. That's the thing about this. Like, there's that expression, like you never want to meet your heroes. But like in this documentary, she comes across as such a sort of warm and kind and authentic person. And
there were some edges, though, and that's why I really believed it. That's why the documentary seemed a lot more, like we were saying about the other ones we've watched recently. There was leaving your husband, and taking your children on this not so great adventure with a new husband around Europe. And there were some things she did that were pretty spontaneous and that were part of her at the time that I'm not saying they glossed over them. They weren't a big part of the documentary, but I appreciated seeing them and I appreciated knowing that about her.
Yeah.
And I think she wanted to, like, it felt like she wanted to address it. Like, it felt like she wanted to acknowledge it. She admits that she's still sort of wrestling with some guilt. And I think that that clip that they chose from the archives was really smart too, about how like she's this fantasy parent to millions of kids. Yeah. But she's like a real parent to these two kids who have to deal with like the complexities of her, not just like the image of her, but like, the complexities that she has, which is that she, did what she thought she was supposed to do for a long time. She struggled against that in her own way and made space for herself. But it sounds like a pretty like bleak first marriage to be in for 16 years and a very lonely marriage to be in. And then you have this like whirlwind, wild, weird thing for 4 years that takes you to like the UK. And, it's a very different schedule than what you'd been previously doing. And you uproot your children to do that. Like you can feel, I think, in the moments that they depict with Judy and Randy and Judy and I forgot her son's name. But anyway, you can see that like there's still a bit of space in between where they all are on their like journeys of like getting past some of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Like there's still a tiny bit of disconnect.
Yes, I could feel that just a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit. Yeah. And I appreciated that they kept that in and that they acknowledged it. And like, but we don't get a lot from Randy about like, for someone who is her mom's first reader for a long time. Yeah. We actually don't get a lot from her about like what what that was like. And I can understand like that's not the point of the documentary, and the point is these other relationships, but that sort of doubles down on the idea that, you know, there are lots of different ways to be a mother. And if you're a mother to like, you know, an idealized, stylized mother to like millions and millions of kids, it can be harder at home with your biological children.
Sure. And also the children knowing that they were a little bit of the inspiration for some things.
And subject matter.
Yeah, that's got to be a bit challenging as well. Her son talks about that.
Yeah. Like your personality and your private moments, maybe like, or the things like if you come home and tell your mom about like what's happening on the bus, then that's going to be like the basis for like a book about bullying or whatever. Yeah. But at the same time, Randy seems really cool that she can say to her mom, like, can't you just write a book about people who have sex and don't die?
Yeah.
And her mom's like, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
What a dream request to a parent.
You know what I feel like? I felt really ripped off because later on I did read Forever when I was so-called allowed. But because I knew the book was, I wasn't allowed to read it, my mom was reading it and it was on her bedside. So I would sneak into her room and I would look up the sex scenes because that's what without any context, without any, like the struggle that the two people were going through, like who they were, you know, the conversations they had. I missed all of that. So therefore I missed, you know, what she was trying to say. And the librarian, I'm sure, you know, I'm hoping she's dead. Let's just put it that way. Because she's a lousy librarian.
Wow.
Yeah. Really left me in the lurch, left me out of a situation I could have really understood and had this idea that, you know, like that sex is fine and that two people can get together and not end up forever, you know, ...
Yes.
Right. Yeah. But we should get back to the intro
yes,
parts
of course.
of our podcast.
Excuse me. Who is Judy Blume? Let me provide you with this answer that Andrea Gin has written from Simon & Schuster. Judy Blume, one of America's most popular authors, is the recipient of the 2004 National Book Foundation Medal for Distinguished Contribution to American Letters. She is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of beloved books for young people, including Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which celebrated 50 years in 2020, and novels for adult readers, including Wifey, Summer Sisters, and In the Unlikely Event. Her work has been translated into 32 languages.
And the synopsis from Amazon, which is who produced this documentary. Judy Blume Forever documents the life and legacy of trailblazing author Judy Blume. Known for her radical honesty, Judy Blume's books revolutionized the way millions of readers understood themselves, their adolescence, and their sexuality. Her fearless mission to openly discuss taboo subjects paved the way to real debate and conversation around book banning, censorship, and teen sexual discovery.
I'm so glad they spend so much time, not just on the relationship building with the other, like with her fans and the young people who read her, but also like talking about censorship and book banning.
Oh my gosh, that interview with Pat Robertson. I mean,
oh my God. But honestly, that's kind of exactly like what that librarian did to you, Lisa, with like saying you're not allowed to take this book out. Like, it means that then you go to just the sex part. You reduce this book to this like minimal and you know, sort of like more like salacious little section or multiple sections or whatever. And then you miss out on the context of everything else that goes into it. Like, it's, you know, there's a reason that banned books are not pornography. Like, they're not, the point isn't just to like, you know, just see who's doing it and how they're doing it. It's like there's so much more story that's happening.
It must be so horrifying for Judy Blume to live in Florida as well, because that's the kind of the epicenter for all this censorship right now.
Well, I mean, like there's, you know, like this is part of what seems like a Judy Blume renaissance. Like she's got this documentary out. There's a movie for Are You There? A movie adaptation of For Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret coming out. And like they are kind of drawing a real line here between, because I guess like I was reading that in 2022, book ban attempts reached like an all-time high ever. And so they're sort of comparing what she went through in the 80s to what is happening now. And she's saying that it's actually worse now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so politicized.
Well, and there's so many more books. It used to just be about sex that you were trying to ban books. Now it's race, and now it's poverty. Now it's just about everything that you can imagine that is important is being banned.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she runs a bookstore in Florida where, you know, like sort of the unofficial motto is "I sell banned books."
Yes. Yeah, I hope that bookstore is safe. I hate it frightens me. That's all.
Well, that's the thing that sucks is like just this. I mean, you know, Judy says it very clearly. Like, there's no arguing with zealots, and that's zealots are really who you see driving all this sort of moral panic around book bans. And yeah, I just the fact that like right now, you know, trans, queer, gender-based, and LGBTQIA books are at sort of like peak top of the list. Books like frankly like just addressing like the reality of racism, books addressing the reality of anti-Semitism, like the fact that that these books are being banned because people don't want to be inconvenienced by truth is a absolutely wild time. And it's like like living at this moment is it's just so dangerous to so many people. And I really want to push back against that and stand up for people.
And so does Judy Blume.
Yeah, I know. I love her so much.
Well, and also another fascinating thing about her is that her books are still selling widely everywhere today and being read widely.
I love seeing all the different covers over the years too that you could see for the books.
Do you remember the scandal when they came out with the new cover for Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, and it was text message bubbles?
Oh,
People lost their minds that like they were like, oh God, Judy Blume's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret is finally in the digital age. She's texting, you know, or whatever. Like this is just a clever way to sort of like keep young people engaged and relating to things. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Well, times change. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, when Child was talking about how she didn't understand how to
phones,
work rotary phones.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I've seen that before, and like I was this like kid when I used to work at the racetrack, and they had this old rotary phone, and that still worked. And this kid went over, and his mom was like across the room, and she was trying to give him instructions on how to use the phone, and she just kept saying, "Just dial it. Just dial it." And he kept trying to like punch the holes with his fingers. And he had like dial it meant nothing to him. Like he just completely could not figure out how to use the phone at all.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God. That would be completely.
It made me feel so old.
It's so
and
funny.
that was
though.
a long time ago.
Oh God, that's so funny. I really appreciated Jason Reynolds, an author who is interviewed in the documentary, excuse me, when he said that Judy Blume didn't set out to write timeless books. She wrote timely books, and then they became timeless. And I so appreciated how beautifully he like just like clarified that for everyone, you know, and like that, and thinking about like what that intention is and how it lives on. And like, yes, there are like very like contextual things that are, you know, don't age that well. Like they talked about and they talk about that in the documentary. Like the variety of people they had on the record was so good. A combination of a bunch of other authors who are on the banned books lists as well. A bunch of different like actors and friends of hers and librarians and people who can provide all of this like great context. Like I thought that was really well done. You know, they didn't just settle for like 5 or 6 people. Like they really got quite a selection of talking heads for the whole thing.
I think they just did a fantastic job. Yeah, putting all of that together. It felt so like fulsome is the word I want to use. Because I'm into words today, apparently. And I want to use the word fulsome.
No, it's a good word for it. I also felt like that. I was like, oh, this does not leave things unanswered. Like, we know what this is. It's very clear. It's very smart. There's again, incredible variety of people represented in this doc. Yeah, I really, really appreciated how it came together.
But, like these books were written 40, 50 years ago. But like, why do you think that no author has, come along since then and written books that have sort of, no one's become the new Judy Blume in that time since then. Like, she's still kind of the preeminent like author in these subjects, and her books are still read.
I think I was thinking about that a lot watching it as well. And I was thinking that if I was probably to describe young adult fiction now, I would describe it as more fantasy based, not just because of Harry Potter, but so many series, so many books are in some kind of, science fiction fantasy world. And I think that at some point, a young person always will go, yeah, I mean, it's super great that they're off at Hogwarts and everything, but I just got my period. I'm going to really need someone to process this with. And Judy Blume is always there. And she did that. And I think that the desire to tell the bigger, more exciting stories is always there, but she told the smaller stories. And I think that's what makes them timeless.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think like because she did it, and because she was sort of like one of the first to do it in the way that she did, which was like frank, honest, not shying away from any facts. Like, she didn't talk down to kids. She doesn't think less of kids. Like, she gets to speak to a slightly older audience, but I think of it as like sort of, Sesame Street doesn't talk down to kids. Or never did anyway. I'm not, super up on it recently since it switched to HBO. But like, I think that they also did like a really, like a kind of a similar thing in that they treat kids as people who are people who have brains and whose interior lives matter. Like, she did it so well, and she did it first. And I know that other people like have done it and have followed in her footsteps, but because she really touched on so many different aspects of puberty and sexuality, and those sort of like coming of age stories, she just like really looms large, but again, like looms large for her time. Like I do think that there are like some pretty big names, and I'm just not as connected to like YA fiction than I, as other people would. But like, I think a lot of people actually interviewed in the movie are like some names really prominent names that I recognize as being like, at least like carrying on some of that radical honesty that Judy Blume really like was a trailblazer of.
Are you, either of you, planning to go see the movie
this weekend?
There, God.
This weekend, I'm planning to go see it. Actually, with a Margaret too. There you go.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
I wonder if the audience is mostly going to be like, people in their 40s and 50s, or there's going to be lots of, young adults there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it'll just be a mother-daughter film to go to as well.
Yeah,
I think there could be like kids and parents seeing it, and people who like grew up with the book. And to me, it's the kind of movie that I'm probably gonna wait to see like at home, just because I don't go into theaters very often, and it has to be like, I mean, let's face it, and I can't even believe I'm gonna say this. It's not like, if I have to see Fast and Furious 10 in the theater. I can see Are You There, God, It's Me, Margaret at home.
Yeah, you need the big screen for all those cars and other lines.
The quieter moments I can see at home. And I that's a terrible thing to say out loud as a feminist and a writer. But yeah, I'm going to be honest. Yeah, like I'm still not going out to tons of things And so I've been very selective about what I'm going
You'll
out
give
to.
you'll give them your streaming money.
I'll give them my streaming money. Oh yeah, if I can stream that thing for like $25, sure, I'll pay that. If they did some kind of outdoor cinema this summer, I would absolutely be at every screening, 100%.
Yeah. I don't see them programming this at the drive-in, unfortunately.
I don't either, and I'm really bummed about that.
They always go for like the kind of big blockbuster family movies.
I know. I mean, I can I also just say, like, I really love that they call this doc Judy Blume Forever, because like I always like, I just love like saying things are forever, because like I think that's a really, I don't know, it's fun. I sign a lot of books like Alanis Forever or Buffy Forever or like whatever, like, and it brings me a lot of pleasure. I think Miss Piggy Forever, like all of the things that I love most in the world, I'm always like, forever, because I'm like, you know, kind of a super fan like that. And so Judy Blume Forever really like gets at how I feel. One of the most exciting things that has ever happened to me professionally is at one point there was some interview with me in, I can't remember what paper it was. But anyway, there's some interview with me, and they also, so on one side of the page, like it was a paper that folded open, and on one side there's a giant piece on me. I'm taking up the whole page. On the other side, there's a giant piece about Judy Blume.
Oh, wow.
We were paired in the book section, and like I honestly, like, I feel like, I'm pretty sure I cried, and I was like, this is amazing. Like, nothing will ever really get better than this moment, because like that's like for a young aspiring writer, like that's like real pinnacle.
Did you
stuff,
frame it?
You know, like I took a picture of it,
Yeah.
And so I have a digital memory of it, but yeah, like that was huge. And yeah, man, if I get to travel to Key West and like just really take my mail in person.
I can see you phoning the
I
bookstore.
know,
Is Judy in today?
Absolutely.
That was like one of the main takeaways from the thing is just that like Key West looks like a real cool little funky place.
Yeah, it looked lovely. Looks so beautiful.
And I feel like it's a town that would really like, I hope maybe come together and stand up for like all of its citizens. Like that would be pretty nice. The movie does break my heart also of like, you know, obviously I have dead dad stuff. Judy has dead dad stuff that I wept at, of course. I was really fascinated in how she described her relationship with her mother, and like how she described sort of like that her mom was like really emotionally closed off, but she also like did this amazing thing where she typed all her manuscripts. Like, but they never talked about the content at any point. Like that's, of course she wrote these books that like, you know, let kids have a place to talk about things that were important to them. Like she seemingly really did not have that to the same extent that she would have liked. And I love like the details of like her talking about masturbation with her friends and her special place, and like, and having friends that would be willing to talk about stuff like that in like the 60s. And like, that's, I mean, I feel like I barely had friends that would be willing to talk about that with me back in like, you know, the 90s. Like that, you know, it was still so taboo. And like,
You go ahead right now. You say whatever you want. We're here for
it's
you.
one of the, so when I went to college, like when I went to university, I actually, there was a sign that my friends made for me on my door, and that said Andrea Warner, sex therapist. Because I would try and make them talk about like masturbation and, you know, sexual attraction and things that they were interested in, like, you know, everything related to sex. Because I thought that it was really important for us to like destigmatize. And it's not that I had that much experience with sex, but I certainly read a lot about it. And, you know, I had like some minor experiences, but like, you know, I at that point was trying to encourage everyone I met to masturbate. And so I was a real fun party guest. I just want you to know.
Kidding, yeah.
But like even my first job, like, or not my first job. My first job was when I was like 14, but my first job in a clothing store, like my manager, who was 10 or 12 years older than me at the time, like it was like, I don't know, my first year after university, and she finally like told me that she'd been with her husband since she was 15. So I guess they'd been together like 15 years at that point. She'd been with her husband since she was 15, really the only man she'd ever been with. She'd never had an orgasm. And I had to like just seriously talk to her about masturbation for a really long time, and like just like talk about like how it's okay and like it's fine. And like she really like, I don't know that her sex life ever necessarily sort of like improved in a way that like felt fully gratifying to her. Cause I mean, you know, orgasms, they're not everyone orgasms, and that's fine too. It's just like experiencing pleasure and trying to like introduce that to people and stuff. And yeah, then when I worked at the chat lines, I will say my sexual education was quite advanced.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I introduced, we talked about masturbation at like family dinners and stuff like that. So.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Again, nowhere to go from there.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess go be alone, I guess, would be the...
Yeah, like if you are going to masturbate not alone, you should have consent for that, just FYI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consent is really important. That's the other thing I think Judy's books really like talked about is like agency, consent, body consent, like thinking about those things. And I really appreciate that. Like that's a lot of people, even like they really tell their kids like, don't talk back to adults. You know, they take the power out of like the kid's nose and stuff like that. Like, you know, you're not allowed to say no to people about certain like things. And like kids have to be able to like say, you don't get to tickle me. You don't get to touch me. You don't get to hug me. Like I don't owe you physical contact, you know? And so I really, really appreciate the way that Judy like centered that in everything she did. And, you know, continues to be like a good, strong advocate. Like when she recently was misquoted and some UK writer tried to like say that she supported J.K. Rowling's transphobic views, and everyone was a little bit devastated for 4 minutes and then realized that this writer has done this to a lot of people. Judy released a statement very quickly and said she has always stood by trans people and trans rights, and anything else is quote unquote BS, but she used the long term. But because we don't want the E word explicit attached to our podcast, I will say BS. Anyway. Yeah, Judy Blume forever, guys.
Also, just what an example of like aging in, you know, I mean,
amazing.
Just enjoying life, having such a fantastic time, staying alive, and she even said she feels so young and so happy. And I just think that was such a beautiful thing. Granted, easy to do with a lot of money, but I'm just saying
for sure.
that it was lovely to see someone so happy.
Yeah, and you know, just watching this doc, I was really struck by the sort of picture it painted of her life, where she has consistently kind of chosen the path less traveled, or she's been brave and like done the thing, and it hasn't always it didn't always work out, and she is honest about that. But like that seems to be this consistent thread in her life, is that she's not afraid of change, and she'll make the sort of non-traditional choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah. The road less traveled, all the way to Key West.
Yeah, we're all going to Key West, and maybe we all have different reasons, but we're all going to end up at that bookstore for sure.
So, where are we on if we think this pops?
Oh big
yeah,
pops. Yeah,
huge pops.
Yeah. Period pops. The whole thing. Yeah. Whatever that is.
Period pops. That makes me so happy. I love it. Yeah, it's great. Huge pops for me. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and then go read Summer Sisters.
Yeah, I absolutely recommend Summer Sisters. I'm going to recommend another book as well in a couple minutes. But go read Summer Sisters for sure. Again, messy, horny. You know, it's great. We love to leave our episodes on something we also recommend. So, AG, would you like to go first?
Okay. This is going to surprise nobody, but I want to talk about figure skating.
Oh, in the almost summer.
So Stars on Ice is currently touring across Canada, and it is Kurt Browning's final Stars on Ice shows.
Wow.
So it's your last chance to see him perform in these shows, and they're coming to Vancouver May 18th at Rogers Arena. And Patrick Chan's in the show, Elvis Stoico, Piper Gillison, Paul Poirier, Jason Brown, and Luna Hendricks, who's the current world silver medalist. And yeah, I think it's from all reports, because it started in out east in Halifax, I think, and by everybody saying it's a fantastic show. So I'm super excited. Of course I'm going, but yeah, I think it's a good ice show to see for any casual fans, even, because it's their chance to see Kurt before he retires from the showbiz.
From the showbiz, from doing Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'll do the greatest hits.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I hope so too, actually. That is a good routine. I've watched it so many times.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. Lisa, what about you? What are you recommending?
When I was just kind of feeling a bit out of sorts, I like to watch spy movies, as I've said before.
Sure.
I started watching The Night Agent on Netflix, and I was a little lukewarm on it, and then I realized all of a sudden I was watching it. It supposedly set in Washington, D.C., and I think it's like 10 parts or something. Anyway, I was watching, and all of a sudden they were in a car chase, and I went, that's not Washington, D.C., that's the Georgia Viaduct. So, of course, I figured out it was filmed in Vancouver, which has made it much more interesting, because it's one of these shows that really, really is out a lot on location. And so I've been having just as much fun watching the show for locations of Vancouver as I have been for the plot. So for those of you who want to see Vancouver look like Washington, D.C., this is your show.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yay.
I've been thinking about watching that one.
Yeah. I heard The Diplomat is very, very good, though.
I've heard that is good as well.
Kerry Russell's so good in everything.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. I'm going to recommend a book called Counterfeit. The author is Kirsten Chen. And I really enjoyed this book. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I was pretty riveted. There's like some good surprise moments. I'm reading this from the HarperCollins page about the book. Also, it apparently was a Reese's book club pick, if that's of interest to anyone. So Counterfeit is the story of two Asian American women who band together to grow a counterfeit handbag scheme into a global enterprise, an incisive and glittering blend of fashion, crime, and friendship.
Ooh. From
the author of Bury What We Cannot Take and Soy Sauce for Beginners.
Nice. That sounds right up my alley. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's very fun. The cover is gorgeous. I love the cover so much. It's so beautiful. I really enjoyed this book.
Excellent.
Really
that sounds like a good summer read.
Yeah.
It's a very good summer read for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening. This has been, it's so nice to, I love it when we do an episode on something that really has felt like just so nice and good and interesting
soul
and
enriching.
compelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's so nice. Anyway, thanks everyone for listening. You can hang out with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You could email us at popthiscollective@gmail.com. And you could, if you wanted, rate and review us 5 stars.
We love the 5 stars. And thanks to Andrea Gin, our co-host and producer here. And thank you all for listening. And just go out and read some Judy Blume books, That's all I got to leave you with.
Yeah, it's perfect. Stock up for summer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what your go-to for summer. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.